Welcome to New Home Insights, the podcast from John Burns Research Consulting. I'm your host, Dean Worley. If you want to follow market trends, demographics, capital, new ideas, and endeavors that touch on housing, we're going to try to make sense of that every couple of weeks. Let's go. Hi, everyone. This is Dean Worley for the New Home Insights podcast. In almost any conversation about housing market these days, you're going to eventually come around to affordability. Affordability has become absolutely critical to solving the housing market. And today we're going to talk to someone whose core focus is solving for affordability. Today we're chatting with Eric Lipar. He's the CEO and chairman of LGI Homes. Briefly, LGI Homes is based in Texas, but they build homes that people can actually afford. And I think 21 states and about 36 markets. Eric, how are you doing this morning?
Great, Dean. Pleasure to be here. Excited about the opportunity.
Excited to have you here. And so we're going to talk about affordability, but a lot about LGI and learn about LGI. Before we do that, let's learn a little bit about Eric Lipar as well as just kind of big picture LGI home story.
I grew up in Michigan, Dean, and that's part of the story. Because when I was growing up, my father was in car sales and got recruited into real estate sales at a resort in northern Michigan. So a lot of the sales process and training that he learned back in the late 80s in Michigan is still with us today. To shorten the story a little bit, he got involved in real estate, ended up in Texas. I graduated from college. I was a math, statistics, and actuarial science major. So I thought I wanted to be an actuary.
Okay.
But also growing up in Michigan, I love the outdoors. So hunting, fishing, being outside. And what my father got involved with was real estate, was selling acreage home sites a little bit further out to people that want to move out to the country, build a custom home. After graduating, I wasn't sure I wanted to be an actuary. So my father said, I don't want you working for me to start, but I could probably get you an interview selling land in Dallas, Texas. So I took the opportunity. I moved to Dallas. I got a job in land sales in Dallas, selling 1 acre home sites. And by the time I started that job in 1993, in 1995, my father started his own company called LGI Development. He moved to Houston to start that, where he had some experience. And I joined him in 1996, again in sales, selling land and learning the land development business. And then we got started in home building, LGI Homes, in 2003, really as a diversification away from the high-end land sales that we thought was more susceptible to recessions, changes in the cyclical real estate market we're all in. So we started LGI Homes in 2003. We're very small, grew it to a few communities prior to the downturn. Mm-hmm. And we were doing well, doing 300 or 400 closings a year, making money. Then the downturn hit. And for us, the downturn was very opportunistic, and we were able to take advantage of that because we were small, because we were profitable, because we're only in Texas. What the downturn did was create opportunities for LGI. It allowed us to explore the opportunity of what we started in Texas and expand areas like Phoenix, Atlanta, Florida, and buy finished lots below replacement costs. But at the same time, we need to find the capital to do that. And my father was never involved in the home building operations. He put up the capital to get started, but his capital was also tied up because of the great financial crisis. So we had to go find our own capital. And that's when we actually contacted John Burns and said, and this is in 2009, and said, John, who do we need to call to help us with capital in the home building industry? And he said, Tony Avila.
Okay.
So we got on the phone with Tony Avila. And at the end of 2009, early 2010, Tony went to work in helping us raise capital to expand the operations and take advantage of some of the opportunities we were seeing. To shorten the story, after talking to a lot of shops, we ended up forming a $50 million joint venture with a company called GTIS in 2010, and that allowed us to grow. It worked out exactly like Tony said it was going to. It's private equity. It allowed us to grow, to get over 1,000 homes. And that led us to our IPO in 2013. In 2013, the year we went public, our average sales price was $160,000. Wow. And we closed 1,600 homes. At the peak, we've obviously taken our business model across the country, like you mentioned. We closed over 10,000 houses in 2021. At the height of the pandemic, what we call silly season, because everybody wanted to buy a house, and record-breaking closings, record-breaking margins. And today we sit in a with a company that's in 150 active communities across 21 states.
It's interesting because 2003, you were at the cusp of being almost too late, and you don't have enough heft there when the bad things hit, but also not early enough where maybe you didn't do some crazy overpaying in 2001 and 2, or at least, and you're still small in 2003 and 4 and into 5 when some people were doing some nutty stuff that they regretted a year or two later. And then in 2013, that was pretty quick to go public. I mean, the market had not been in turnaround all that long. What fed that decision to do that relatively early?
Yeah, it was really a market decision. We had on our goals, partly because of my father's and what a lot of private builders face when they get some size to them. Your capital just keeps getting recycled, right? And the personal guarantees are there, and it's very challenging. There are very few companies that do it, stay private, and continue to grow. And the options for us as a company, and with my father and I both having ownership, he's like, I'm getting old. We either need to sell the company or go public. And I'm like, well, I am firmly in the go public camp. I was like, well, you need to make it happen. And then after that, we made the decision that that's our goal, and we expanded. We had to prove that our business model worked outside of Texas.
Yeah.
Hiring of Chris Kelly as our first employee in 2011 in Phoenix, Arizona was one of the big wins for LGI. He's still with us today. He runs the entire Western United States for LGI. And we need to prove that. And then the market took over. TriPoint, I believe, was the first company that year to go public. And as the bankers told us, hey, the window's open. It is time for you to go. We didn't necessarily think we were going to go public in 2013 with a couple $100 million in revenue. But when the banker said it's time, I'm like, okay, here we go. Here we go.
Yeah. And it does seem a hair earlier than I forgot that TriPoint was in that same timeline as well.
Yeah. New Home, Taylor Morrison was there. Century was there. We were there. It's just the market opened, and we all went basically probably within a 6 to 9 month period. There's 5 or 6 of us that went public. Yeah.
And all very successful still through some ups and downs since then time. So let's talk about first a little bit about that LGI appeal you guys are super focused, super disciplined. Let's talk about how you do that with how you are focused on what buyers you service, on your product, on your price points. Let's start with price points. Tell me if I'm wrong, but you're very, very much all about the entry level niche. So let's start with that. First, what was it that made you say, okay, we're going to play in that relatively affordable entry level space?
Yeah, we liked it when we first started, going even back to prior to 2003. We were actually did 2 manufactured housing communities prior to LGI Homes that were both successful. My father, prior to that, had some manufactured housing experience as well as high-end land experience. And we just thought, and he was passionate, that's just the biggest segment of the market. Right or wrong, most of the population needs to be in a fairly affordable house. And it's such a large segment. And we already had the high-end luxury buyer move in our acreage home sites, selling to people that want to build custom homes. So there's a little bit of a diversity play as well. But that segment of people that are currently paying rents and want to get into home ownership is so large. We're like, that is the space that we want to play in. And we thought our sales and marketing efforts and what we're really good at and where we outshine the competition, that is really aligned in how we think about the business and really providing that exceptional customer experience to those first-time home buyers.
And we'll talk about that later in the podcast, but I definitely want to talk about that because you're kind of legendary for your sales program. And in terms of this entry-level niche, do you always think of yourselves as you're going to play exclusively there? Has there ever been consideration for maybe doing some move up?
There has, and there is. LGI Homes is the brand that I believe will always be exclusive to the first-time home buyer. We're really good at it. We give the customers great experience. We build quality homes. Our job site's clean. Our warranty costs are low. We have got that dialed in, and that's the way it always will be. We do believe when we started, it's been almost 10 years now, is the Trotta Homes brand, which is our luxury series brand. And that is about 5% of our business. But we believe our sales process, our people, the quality of our product plays at that upper price point as well.
Okay.
And we have been strategic with that. We have seen opportunities to expand that in communities. We've got Not a lot, but we probably have 3 to 5 communities nationwide where we either have LGI Homes and Trata currently selling in the same community as a way to drive absorption pace, or planned in the very near future. So we like the Trata brand as well. We like that higher price point, but LGI Homes certainly will stay focused on the entry level buyer.
I'm going to steal a question from forward when I was going to talk to you about the sales process, but you just kind of hinted at it. So your sales process when you're selling more move-up buyers, it's pretty much the same. That translates?
It is. If you're talking about the sales process itself, it is exactly the same.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
And what we mean by that, Dean, and I think this is important, there is no, in our opinion, there is no magic to our sales process. Our sales process and the results it creates is really, we like to spend dollars advertising, going direct to the consumer, and we like to drive a lot of leads to our community. We like to have professionally trained salespeople to communicate with those buyers and make sure they're getting a good experience. And our sales process is really giving customers all the information they need to make a decision, making sure our job sites look spotless, making sure we have a quality product, doing a lot of listening with these customers. The great thing about sales, really in our industry or working at LGI, is the customers call us. I mean, the customers are emailing us, they're calling, they're walking in their offices, like, I am interested, right? That's one thing that's dramatically different in our business today than when we started, is the customers have all the information before we come in. And the thing we emphasize continuously with our teams, the customers walk in our office aren't concerned about the location. They already know the location.
Yeah. Okay.
They like the way the product looks. They like the price. They like the interest rate because they already know all that information. The customers that don't like that information, they've moved on and went somewhere else, right? The last number I heard, we have approximately 1 million people, users, looking at our website every single month. And that results in approximately 25,000 people a month submitting a lead, inquiring about homeownership. So 975,000 weren't interested in what we were selling, although we did intrigue them enough to take a look. And I don't think we should focus on them. But the 25,000 that did, right? 25,000 people, they're interested.
Yeah. So let's talk about that then. Let's talk about that sales process. Internally, you guys are known for being just super, super focused, again, super disciplined. What is that training process? I mean, when you bring in a new sales agent, they go through some very extensive and very focused training. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think the starting with what we believe in. We believe we want to hire professionally trained salespeople that are knowledgeable to answer any question the customer has. And we believe that's going to take at least a year in the business. Our formal training process, if you will, is 100 days, where we believe we can get someone up to speed to be able to answer most of the questions. But to really get comfortable in the business, we believe it's going to take about a year. We don't believe in having a hostess in the community or having someone just to be there to hand out cookies and be a greeter. That's not what we believe in. If somebody walks into an LGI office and wants to write us a check for $350,000 and pay cash for a house, we want to take that check.
Yes.
Right? We want to be able to, that salesperson to take that check, write a contract, and move that customer in. And that's what we should be. And that's what sales are. And it takes a while, and there has to be a focus on it. If you believe that when a customer walks in the office, it's important that that salesperson has knowledge on construction, on mortgage, on the product, on the area. Where's the nearest, daycare? Where's the nearest golf course? Tell me about the schools. Well, not only can I tell you about the schools, I looked them up and I'm an expert on them, but I visited the schools and I understand, and I've met the principals at that school. It's just focus, discipline, and going deeper on sales training.
Yeah. So they need to come in with some experience. You're going to train the heck out of them, but you also expect them to do their homework.
Absolutely. There is nothing easy about sales at LGI. There's nothing easy about the sales in the industry, especially in the market dynamics we are in today. So salespeople that are successful at LGI they're going to have to take some initiative. They're going to have to put it a level of their commitment and take takes some discipline and how much they're going to work at it. But this is not a 40-hour-a-week job. This is weekends. This is evenings. This is responding to customers. This is a work ethic job, and you better have some grit to be successful with us or in the industry right now.
So you see some builders going for a model of sales where they're not there all the time.
Yeah.
It's appointment only. You can go ahead and punch in a code and go look in the models. Yeah. Do you see yourself as ever doing that? Or are you always going to have on-site presence there, 24/7?
We think it's very important to have on-site presence there, not necessarily 24/7, but okay. in hours where someone may stop by. I think that's what is different in our business, Dean. And I think part of where this question's going is something that we think about a lot. 10 years ago, 15 years, 20 years ago, when we got started in the business, we were dealing with customers that were calling us on the phone. Mm-hmm. Right. When we started building houses, there was no email or digital world. People called on the phone because that's how they needed to communicate with people to collect information. And people would stop in the community for a lot more information. A lot more people stopped in and they want to hear about your floor plans you're selling, for example. Well, now our floor plans are all online and everybody has access to them before they come in. So in the digital world that we live in, how best to deal with those digital leads, I think is something that we are focused on, something that we're working on, and something that will continue to evolve on communicating with the leads that are coming in. I think to your question, on-site salespeople, we believe it's vitally important to have people on site all the time to handle these customers that stop in. It would be nice if every customer you had an appointment with showed up exactly on time when they were supposed to at all times. Yeah. But that's not really the reality. And people do still drive around. They still look at houses. Yeah. Our locations are on our website. They do not need to have an appointment to come out and visit our communities. So we think that on-site presence is important. I think the market, again, is challenging enough that everyone, especially outside of LGI, is balancing how to make sales work with the financial numbers, work with staffing levels and marketing spend and customer service, because there's no easy answer right now. The great news for all of us, and I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about the market, the great news for us and what we're seeing is the customers are very resilient. Mm-hmm. The demand for home ownership is still there. It doesn't really matter, or it doesn't seem to matter. Iran war, tariffs, whatever the news cycle of the day is, the desire for home ownership is still there. We believe it's always going to be there.
Yeah. Your sales process too, like I said a minute ago, is kind of legendary as well. I believe in kind of telling the LGI story, right? In a pretty disciplined way. Can you describe that? Because a lot of folks maybe don't know what that process is.
Yeah, Dean, I think our process, and I appreciate the kind words and the thoughts. What we believe in is a very structured sales presentation. We believe in a process. We have a scripted presentation, if you will, that when salespeople are on our game, it doesn't seem scripted to the customer, but we have certain items that we think we should cover with the customer. For example, we cover a map of the United States and tell them about LGI's history of success, the fact that we've moved in over 80,000 customers. We think when a customer is considering doing business with us as a company, the fact that we've built, sold, and closed over 80,000 customers is something that they should know. So we just build that into our sales presentation. Every LGI office and the customers or the sales representatives have a presentation that talks about the area and the community and talk about transportation routes to and from work, talk about where the schools are, where they're currently working, where they're currently living. I mean, nothing that's proprietary as far as asking customers questions about where they're currently working and if this location works for them. But being disciplined and making sure we cover that with a customer, especially first-time homebuyers that may not be familiar with this brand new location that comes from, because we know whether they ask us the question or not, we know we need to cover with the customer from this location, how are you going to get to your work? Because they're not sure. So our salespeople are going to walk them through that. Also, we believe, and we like to talk to them up front and give them the information, HOA dues. Mm-hmm. Property taxes, the schools, all of that information, the concept of home ownership and down payment and getting finance for a home is something that's probably new to a lot of these customers. But we like to give them that information before we go out and look at the homes. Not so much deep dive into financing, just a little bit of information on the community, the area, financing in general, maybe if they have saved for down payment. So when we're out there looking at homes, it makes more sense. And then once we find the right home, then we can do a deeper dive into the financing part.
You guys are all about lead generation. You spend a tremendous amount of marketing dollars, as you said, bringing people into, providing intention, getting them on the website, getting to understand and know about LGI. Then that process isn't completely foreign to builders, but it's a little different. Weird question. What is the closest analog you can think of off the top of your head to LGI that's not a home builder? The way you sell your product, quote unquote.
Yeah, that is a great question. I think some of the industries that we talk about and we recruit from that we have heard from our employees that it makes sense is furniture sales, mattress sales, those type of environments. When you walk into a store and a piece of furniture from a well-known furniture company or a well-known mattress company, you are likely to deal with a trained salesperson that's probably working on some sort of script or process designed around making sure you understand the benefits of this particular brand of mattress and what price range. And I don't know the last time you shop for a mattress, Dean, but you can spend a little bit of money on a mattress or you can spend a lot of money on a mattress, right?
That's what I'm imagining.
And you need to figure that out. If you're a professional salesperson in the mattress business, you need to figure out what the type of mattress the customer's looking for. So I think that's pretty close, probably closer than the car business, but similar to the car business, people are walking in and we have the mentality if they're in our homes or they're inquiring, they're interested. That's how the car dealerships think. Whether you appreciate the experience going to a car dealership or not, anyone that's on site on a car dealership is interested in buying a car. And you pick out the car first, then you go to work on financing. Similar to LGI, you come in, you hear great things, you look at the houses, you pick out the ideal floor plan, then we go to work on financing.
And it makes sense that you mentioned, because you are, the LGI brand anyway, is so focused on that entry-level buyer. You do need to sort of educate them a lot. Aren't roughly 80% or so of your buyers from rental households? Is that
correct? Yeah. It's higher than that. I mean, the first-time home buyer, 90% plus are first-time home buyers, 90% plus are currently paying rent.
Okay, 90, okay.
Yeah, and they need to be educated. They want to be educated. And I think it's important to educate them so they understand exactly what they're getting themselves into or exactly how homeownership works. One of the dynamics that has changed is the delta between homeownership right now and what monthly payment that entails and renting. That delta is wider than it used to be. And it's more in favor financially of leasing. That doesn't mean that people aren't still inquiring about homeownership. They are. They just need to be educated on what the difference is and why it may or may not make sense for them to get into homeownership. We still believe long-term homeownership is the way to go. We lease houses. We are pro-leasing. We're pro-single family rent. We're pro-BTR as a step in the process. But we believe the majority of Americans, that's why we love the business, are still going to want to be in home ownership, just like I am, just like Caitlin is, just like I assume you are. At some point, you took the step into home ownership. And it may be later in life for some of the younger generation. They're going to get into home ownership later. It takes longer to save for down payment. It's not as easy. But we believe everyone's still going to get there.
So let's circle back to price if we can. Outside of California, maybe, of all your markets, the 21 states that you are building in, what's kind of your very approximate sort of price sweet spot where the bulk of your sales are?
Yeah, well, like I said earlier, when we went public, is $160,000 was our average sales price. And our bread and butter at that time was about a 1,500 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage house that was primarily in Texas. And at that point, we expanded a little bit outside Texas, Arizona, Florida, Georgia. What has happened is that by 2019, that price was 50% higher to $240,000. By 2024, and consistent with where it is today, we're in the $360,000 range, so up another 50%. Some of that, a lot of that's inflation. Some of it's geographic diversity.
Okay, yeah.
But the $360,000 house compared to the $160,000 house, our average square footage is still 1,500 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. So it's just costs more money. Now, the great news is those 80,000 customers we've sold, the vast majority of them, I mean, probably almost all of them have equity into their home because of price appreciation. And that's a good thing. But if you're an entry-level buyer in Texas or the Carolinas or Florida or some of our more affordable markets, you're probably going to have to pay, or the market's going to suggest it's about a $300,000 ASP. And if you're in markets, you mentioned California, but we can put Seattle and Portland and Denver and Salt Lake into that mix as well. And that $300,000 house is going to be closer to $450,000 or $500,000 for a 1,500 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage home,
which is insanely affordable. I'm speaking from California right now.
Sure. I mean, it's what the market is.
Yeah.
And I think when we get back together, Dean, in 5 years for podcast episode 2, we're going to be talking about an average sales price that is no question higher than it is today in all those markets.
Oh, for sure.
I think all of us at the end of the day are really a cost plus operation, right? We take our costs, we add a fair profit, and we think costs are going to continue to increase.
And they almost certainly will. You're a stats guy. So I'm curious, if you controlled for inflation and for mix shift, like you said, you're in some different markets, but do you think your entry-level pricing is outpacing the market as a whole, or is actually not increasing as, say, move up? Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, I think it's similar, going back to my previous statement of raw cost plus a margin in what I would say normal market. In more challenging markets, there might be quarter to quarter fluctuations, or some of us have to incentivize more, which is part of the name of the game now. So there's going to be a little bit of variety. But at the end of the day, I think all housing is going to continue to go up in price because costs are going to continue to go up in price, and don't see any insight. I mean, what is land prices going to do over the next 3, 5, and 10 years? I think they're going to go up.
For sure. Yeah.
What is the cost of materials going to go over the next 3, 5, 10? I mean, I think generally cost of materials is going to go up. What is the cost of labor going to do? What is the cost of doing business with the cities? What are their requirements and the challenges of doing business? Because sometimes we don't talk about it as inflation, but if the city puts a new green space requirement in, or their sidewalk requirements go from 4 feet wide sidewalks to 6 feet wide, that makes housing more expensive. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily inflation. It just got more expensive because it's different, right?
So let's talk about your buyers for a minute. You're, again, 90% are coming from the renter pool. Just give us a flavor. Who are they? Yeah. What do they do for a living? And maybe the third one is, how have you seen their necessary income change over the last few years?
Yeah, we got the mortgage stats every quarter. We know who our buyers are. And last quarter, most recent one, our average buyer had an age of approximately 40 years old, consistent with the national stats. Average credit score for someone that closed was 680. So really good credit. And the average income was $99,000 plus a year. So basically $100,000 a year in household income. That's the household of the income that's on the loan. Sometimes it's a single buyer, sometimes, and many times it's multiple buyers. And how that has changed is, that household income used to be 50 and then 60, then 70, 80, and now it's 100 because you need to make more income, obviously, to qualify for a home at today's pricing and today's rates. But yeah, our customers that close on homes are very solid financially. I mean, they have proven they can pay their bills by evidence of 680 credit score. Most of them are going FHA financing, putting 3.5% down, which 3.5% of $360,000 is a bigger number than $160,000 in 2014, right? So they've got the capital and they have the income to qualify to make sure they can cover all their debts.
What is maybe the biggest hurdle, though, with transitioning those renters into buyers, even though they have good credit scores, et cetera? What is kind of the biggest challenge for you?
The biggest challenge for us is, and John Burns and your firm and everyone shares this information with all of us. And you can correct me if I'm wrong when I say this, but I'll generalize. I believe the amount of customers in our demographic that qualify for the median priced home compared to the period of 2014 to 2019 is about half. So it's just because the prices and the rates and the inflation in the housing monthly payment has outgrown the income, and not nearly as many people qualify, which we think is unfortunate. And that's part of our business. And it's one of the challenges we have. So we have to work with more customers, and they're just not as large a pool. And I said, our average income of somebody moves in is 100,000. And there are a lot of customers that walk into our offices every day that have a household income of 60 to 90,000. And, obviously, Dean, you know this. I mean, unfortunately, 69,000 is a majority of teachers, firefighters, policemen, a lot of hardworking Americans that today do not have the opportunity to own, because that income bracket will not buy you the medium home across the United States. That's just the market today. And those customers are going to have to rent or lease or live with someone or come up with a solution outside of homeownership. Now, what gets us excited, that's today. We like to think that that's going to change in the future. That income level will be able to buy houses again, probably because of lower rates, or they're just going to have to wait longer. And their income's going to have to catch up. They have to save, they have to pay down debt, whatever it's going to be. But I don't think we've lost those customers forever. It's just temporary.
Have you thought about solutions like, I don't know, offsite? Offsite has always, it seems like it's going to have the promise of lowering those costs maybe dramatically. So far, it hasn't. Do you see any hope in that kind of an avenue?
Well, we can always hope, but evidence is what we're looking at, and any offsite solution today, whether it's panelization, et cetera, if it creates a more affordable home or a more affordable component that leads to a lower average sales price, we are all in on that. Some of the leading tech, the innovation, the true offsite, the manufacturer, the modular, the 3D printing, all of these grand ideas are all great ideas. But when we really looked at it, it was not a cost savings today. If potentially is cost savings in the future, we are 100% on board for anything that makes housing more affordable.
It's that critical mass that is the problem with that, because it does seem like those kinds of solutions would have eventually the ability to help with affordability, but they need to already be at scale. And
right.
It's hard to get that started. How about something else we're hearing around the housosphere, which is rent to own? You're coming mostly from renters, as we just talked about. Have you ever thought about a rent to own model?
We're doing it in a smaller scale, Dean. We are leasing out some houses in Texas. I'm putting renters into homes. It's a way in our mind to move inventory, create a little bit more traffic. I think true rent to own is complicated if there is you're renting and it is tied to a price for a homeownership. That gets really complicated. I think rent to own is where the single family rental build to rent communities have come in. And I think that is a great alternative for people as a stepping stone between apartments and homeownership, because it gives that customer the 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. It gets them in the school district. It gets them in nice communities. And I think that has been a great addition to our business. And we have sold a lot of homes to the single family rental community, the big wholesale operator. We sold over $1 billion of homes to that industry over the last, since we've been public, and since that's been an industry over the last 10 years. So it's been a big part of our business, and we're big believers in that. In fact, when it first started happening, was skeptical. Well, I'm not sure customers want to live in a community that's got scattered, built for rent, or customers that are leasing. And we knew that was not the case. If you drive through an LGI community, which is predominantly entry-level housing, and you drive down a street and it just something stands out like, man, that's a really good looking street. It's probably the build to rent street, because landscaping's included in their rent, and the operators are mowing the yard consistently every week, and it looks fantastic. So we are big fans.
Making that point, oh God, years ago, to a very, very skeptical, I have to be a little vague, but let's say a government person. And they just could not wrap their head around the idea that in terms of just neighborhood maintenance, it's not every individual person who's doing it. Right. It's going to be cohesive. And they just could not wrap their head, but it's absolutely true.
Yeah, that's one part of it. And if you drive through a community, you cannot tell who is renting a house, who owns a house. I mean, we welcome all the above, owners and renters.
Are you still concerned at all about the road to housing bill? The BTR folks have breathed a sigh of relief. We're recording this, by the way, in kind of early mid-June with Eric. Are you watching closely about what happens with SFR given your wholesale operations?
Yeah, I think we're paying attention to it because we're in this in the industry. I think it's from my seat, it's hard to pay attention to the day-to-day activities because it's been all over the map. But I think generally where we are today is everybody's feeling good.
Yeah.
That we're going to have a bill that works well for the industry, unlike some of the versions earlier that we thought were going to be headwinds and didn't make a lot of sense. It seems like that's on a path to making sense. And from what we're hearing, it's going to be a bill that everyone can work with. And we think that's positive.
Okay. Yes, it does sound like that. Before we move on, I want to talk a little bit about product. Before we do that, what is one thing that you've learned about your buyers, your LGI buyers, during this process, let's say during the life of LGI, that you just did not think was true, or did not know about when you first started LGI?
That is a great question, Dean. I think I think our buyers continue to surprise us with how hard they are going to work for home ownership. And we think that's very positive. And we got to be right there with them. And our teams have to continue to work with these customers. And we continue to see stories that this customer has been working with somebody of our team for months, if not years, to work on saving for a down payment to get their family into home ownership. And it just makes our belief stronger that home ownership is here to stay. It's hard work. The demand's there. People want to own homes. They want to raise their family in a home. They want to live in nice neighborhoods. And it continues to pleasantly surprise us how resilient the demand, the leads coming in. And if we treat people well and we're willing to work with them, they are willing to work and get there as well.
And you're still seeing this in, say, your youngest buyers, your buyers, say, late 20s, early 30s, because you do hear that demographically, those folks are more discouraged about home ownership.
Yeah, it's hard to say because I'm basing it on, going back to our earlier comments, we have 1 million people look at the website. I'm basing it on the 35,000 that are interested. So the younger generation that's not interested in home ownership, we don't even hear from them.
Yeah. There
is such a large pool of people that are interested in it, that those are the people working with. And some of them are the younger generation. But I generally can't argue with the facts that companies like yours put out that the average age is increasing, the average home buyer probably in home ownership later, getting married later, starting families later. That's factual.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to be there when they're ready.
What you just cited basically was a selection bias. So you are really a stats guy. That was impressive.
Yes.
Let's talk real quick about product and land. And then I want to we'll wrap it up with talking about your podcast. We'll get kind of meta. So product, you already described about 1,500 square feet is roughly the size of your home. I mean, what's the spread? How far do you go? What is your typical bedroom count? That kind of thing?
Yeah, I think a typical LGI community, Dean, we are going to have 4 or 5 floor plans available under the LGI Homes brand. That is likely a combination of 3, 4, and 5 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2-car garage. I think the interest, and it's likely our smallest home is probably in the 12 to 1,300 square foot home size, and our largest home is probably in the low 2,000s. And I think that creates a reasonable spread to appeal to the first-time home buyer. I think on this topic where we have experimented but haven't really gone all in on is the smaller square footages. You would think that in a less affordable market, when monthly payments are challenging as far as ratios and income, that smaller square footages would be a easy, no question, just build smaller houses. And we have found statistically that is not an absolute.
Interesting. Okay.
In some communities, the 1,100 square foot house or the 1,000 is working better. And it's allowing customers getting home ownership. And I would say more of the cases, the customers that can qualify aren't interested in the 1,000 square foot house or the 2-bedroom house. We have found, even in this affordability challenge market, in a lot of communities, the best selling homes are the 2,000, 22, and 2,400 square foot houses, because the customers that have over $100,000 in household income, that's the type of square footage that they want. And they want the 4 bedrooms. We have also chosen as a company, even though it would likely lead to more sales and closings, we want to be proud of the houses we build. We want to, when you drive through an LGI community, we want to be proud of that community. We think you have to be careful if you're going to bring into that community homes that are 350, 400, 450, 500, 600 square feet, especially if you're going to put that product on a lot size that would be more conducive to a 1,200 square foot house.
Okay.
We think it looks out of place. Driving that price point down. I don't think we're convinced that a 600 square foot house 10 years from now is going to be the best decision for a customer to make, and what's the resale value. So we have stayed away from those extremes. The other thing I think that's something we're proud of is we have stayed away and chosen to, even though we're in the affordable housing business and you can take costs out of LGI Home, we have chosen to make sure our fit and finish and our quality is where we want it to be and consistent to what we have built over the last 23 years.
You just stole my second question about product, which is your homes are pretty darn turnkey, aren't they? You have the design package appliances. They're ready to go.
They're ready to go. The refrigerator's included. And the fit and finish is at a level where we train our salespeople this. The other thing that you have to understand, and this is different via community, is how many, compared to a builder that's got the design center or options, what dollar value are we already including in the house? And pretty consistently, our sales teams find LGI is including $20,000 or $30,000 of upgrades in the house. Some of that is consistency, Dean, and what we believe in. Some of it's we want to be proud of the houses that we're build. Some of it's keep our warranty costs low and make sure we're building a quality house with quality products. So for example, countertops, it would be less expensive to bring Formica countertops into some of our communities. But we have chosen, because of quality, appeal to the customer, and consistency across the United States, every LGI home has a hard surface countertop. It's just what we chose to do. And we've chosen not to take that out. And yes, we could save $300, $500, $1,000 on a house, and it could lower the sales office, but we'd lose that consistent, we lose that quality, that fit and finish. So we have chosen not to strip down our houses.
Let me ask you one question about land. How do you balance being a developer and developing your own lots, entitling and developing, versus buying finished lots? And how far forward are you looking to fill that pipeline, whether it's developing or buying finished lots?
Yeah, it's a great question. The answer is we like to buy both. We like finished lots and the advantages that finished lots have as far as getting into those lots quickly, returning capital quickly, taking out some timing and development risk. But over the years, there's just not a lot of developers out there. There is not, certainly to satisfy demand. So we made a decision a long time ago, and it's part of our background as well. We're comfortable with it, that we are going to develop a lot of the land. And we like the control aspect of it, but we also think it's really the only way we can do business and grow and enter new markets. And then we'll supplement with the finished lot opportunities as they come. The key, I believe, in developing land, and I think we've done a fairly good job of this, is if you're developing land and selling homes, you need to capture the developer profit as well as the home building profit. And because you cannot develop, especially in this market, you cannot develop land and just as a break-even proposition just to feed the home building machine and make home builder profit. That is not going to work. That is not going to get the returns that any of us or our investors like. So as long as you're capturing that profits, and you need to be for taking the risk and putting up all the capital up front, you need to capture and get a return on that. Then it can work.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The risk involved in developing is so much greater. You can't turn down that development amount. Eric, you do your own podcast. It's called From the Ground Up. You do it with Josh Spatter, who was I think your executive vice president of investor relations. What is that all about?
Well, we started it within the last 12 months. We've got 6 episodes now released. We call it From the Ground Up. And Josh Fatter, who does a phenomenal job of hosting the podcast. So he's our EVP of Investor Relations and Capital Markets. And him and I get together. And so far we've done 6, like I said, where we're just having a conversation about everything LGI related and everything about the industry, very similar to what you and I have done. But every episode takes on a little bit different twist and meaning. And it started because we want to get the word out about LGI, I guess. And one of the challenges we have had, Dean, and not a surprise to you, is as we have grown, as we have expanded and got further from our corporate office here in the Woodlands, I don't get the direct connection as much as I used to with our employees, with our investors. And we thought it would be good to start getting that out there to the world. And what we hear from our marketing teams is video content is the way to go, right? We need to get more video content out there to tell the LGI story. And so we started from the ground up. We're biased in our opinion, but we think it's great. And we've got great feedback. I think investors that are looking at buying our stock, we've been sending them to the podcast to get a little bit more familiar with our story, to get more familiar with how we think about the business, to get more familiar about how we think about people and our culture. I think for employees, it's been great. We've got great feedback from our employees that when they watch or listen to these podcasts, they learn more about the company, our history, how we think about it, and all of the conversations we had. And any other person in the real estate industry under general leadership that may be interested in learning more about our story or how we think about people management or product or any other part of the real estate business. We think it's been very beneficial. One of the podcasts, the last one we did, was we really focused after the quarter, because as a public company, we have our quarterly earnings, we read our transcripts, we ask Q&A, and then individuals, we do investor calls afterwards. But this is a way for Josh and I to go deeper on a podcast to talk about the most recent quarter that anyone can listen to and just go deeper on any topic.
Yeah. And it's not so rote and by the book and by the numbers as, in those quarterly investor calls. You can get a little more fun with it.
Yeah, answering questions about whether it's owned and controlled lots or debt or sales level in a podcast format, where we go back and forth for literally 5 or 10 minutes on the same question is different than Q&A on a live investor call, right? Or on a quarterly earnings call.
And vastly more interesting.
Yes.
I think. Eric, thank you so much for coming on. This has been great.
You're welcome. No, I appreciate it. Great talking to you, Dean.
All right. This is Dean Worley with the New Home Insights podcast. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Since you forgot to hit the stop button, I'm going to take a second to tell you about our weekly Building Market Intelligence newsletter. Over 40,000 smart folks get these timely takes on the housing market in their inbox every week, and you can too by heading to jbreg.com/subscribe and signing up.